There is an MDL right now against Uber, and this is for failure to prevent driver sex assaults. And this is relatively new, but they're saying that Uber has known for nearly a decade that its drivers were preying on and sexually assaulting passengers, but they failed to do anything to try to provide safety. At the same time, they're advertising that it's very safe for women to use Uber, and that there are certainly things that they could have done better that they have decided not to do. Again, prioritizing profits over safety.
Prioritizing profits.
Dangerous drug and product cases.
Welcome back. Another week, another episode. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How's your weekend?
All good, actually. Got back from Tampa. So let's see. We recorded 2, and we did not record on the 14th since it was Valentine's Day. So here we are a week later, which is Peter's birthday. Today is the day. Peter. Yes, happy birthday, honey. But yeah, good. I mean, this past weekend was great. We did a really long, vigorous hike on Sunday.
Vigorous hike?
Yeah. We forgot how vigorous this hike was. There's a lot of up and down, going to Kentucky camp, but it was good. It was warm, t-shirt weather.
Yeah.
The dogs had a blast. Peter and I were both feeling a little bit sore by the end of it, but the dogs handled it beautifully. So yeah, I mean, it's been great, and getting ready to leave tomorrow for Peter's birthday trip to Prescott.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Very exciting. Is it, it's a birthday trip, so what does that exactly entail?
Well, I don't know that really entails anything. We've been kind of taking at least little road trips once a month, but we wanted to do one around Peter's birthday. Usually we do like the second weekend of the month, but I was in Tampa for my Super in the City event. So we didn't do it, and it seemed fitting to take a trip right around Peter's birthday just to celebrate him. So
that makes sense.
He'll be the center of attention.
He does deserve celebration. Christina and I, if he is listening to this, I think he's already received the present.
Yes, it'll be a week later.
Christina and I got him a surprise present. It's like a mystery box of different snacks, exotic snacks, because he's an exotic eater like I, just likes to try different flavors, different things, and then he's also a snacky person.
He just annoying.
Yeah, middle of the night snacks. So we put 2 and 2 together and thought, why not some unique exotic snacks? Which I think, because he is European, what things that are unique to us might not be unique to him. I know when I went to Amsterdam, I thought some of the desserts were like crazy, absurd, right? Like some of the flavors on the candy bars and chips and all that. But that's just how they do it there.
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, he is a big snacker. And the reason I say it's annoying is just because like he snacks and he doesn't gain any weight. And he just snacks all the time. And that's like not something you're supposed to do after dinner if you want to be healthy. But he gets away with it. But yeah, he likes very different things. So I'm kind of excited too, as well. He likes to have snacks on the road, as you can probably imagine. So we've got a little bit of a drive there and back. So I suspect he'll be tearing into those early on.
Yeah, I think one of the funniest things you told me is when, because you make the fresh dog food for your dogs, that's like just straight beef and carrots and
green beans. Sometimes carbs. They're on a low carb right now, so they don't get the sweet potato.
Yeah, maybe some brown rice or sweet potato, something like that, but completely unseasoned, just straight. And you'll wake up in the middle of the night to Peter sneaking out, heating up some of the dog food, maybe throwing some salt and pepper on there.
Exactly. He adds a little spice to it and eats the dog food. I'm like, that's for the dogs.
I mean, it's healthy.
It's very healthy, but I don't want the dogs going hungry.
That's fair. How was your sober in the city?
It was great. It was really, really good. Spent an extra couple days there. So we spent a day also in Clearwater, and then a day in actually downtown Tampa.
Nice. Any alligators? Crocodiles?
No. We did not see any alligators.
Snakes? Pythons?
I know, we didn't see any real wildlife. We did go on a dolphin cruise, and we saw a couple of dolphins. And then we also saw, so in Clearwater, this is where, the Church of Scientology, I don't know if it's based there, but they have bought up, all of Clearwater. And Tom Cruise actually has a condominium there. We could see that from our boat. And he has this, top floor of this building. And he actually takes his car. There's an elevator that takes his car all the way up into his his condo with him, so he doesn't like park in the garage.
That's crazy.
So
That's
crazy.
Was this like part of the tour where they're like, and to your
Yeah.
left, you can see Tom Cruise's house and into his living room?
Exactly. And John Travolta. But, Tom Cruise is huge in the Church of Scientology.
Oh, yeah. There's that whole clip that I like try to get off the internet where he's preaching about Scientology and how great it is and all that.
Well, it was kind of, then Peter and I were talking about it, and, it's this L. Ron Hubbard. It was this book, and there's some of the things. I don't want to, everybody's religion is okay, but this one, that they believe that aliens came and some things along those lines that I guess I just are challenging for me. How is that? Is that democratic?
Yeah, what I've heard about it, it's not even really religion based. It's more of just like the secret society,
Culty.
Culty. Well, yeah, definitely culty, but kind of like backroom deals running the country, and Scientology has a big part in that, where because there's the whole thing with like Illuminati and devil worshipping as well, where a lot of the famous people just so happen to have some of these characteristics or qualities. Ice Spice at Super Bowl, there's a clip of her going around where she was wearing an upside down cross, and the camera went out on like Taylor Swift chugging a beer, but then Ice Spice was in the background like doing apparently demonic symbols with an upside down cross. So anyways, I think Scientology is kind of pooled into that group of secret society running things behind the scenes.
Yeah, I really don't know a lot about it, but it was an interesting little, thing to talk about on the tour, and I did not get abducted or converted.
Or eaten by crocodiles.
Yeah, no, we didn't see any crocodiles at all, but it was a great trip. Saw a lot of friends that I don't get to see very often. Twice a year, basically, at these events, and the next one will be in Seattle in September. So
Seattle, nice. That's a good pick. It's a good pick. Yeah. It's definitely really changing up with the scenery, starting in Florida and then going to Seattle, quite far from each other, quite diverse. But maybe that's the way to do it. Keep things interesting. If you're not drinking, you might as well change up the weather and location a bit, right?
Well, and it's also just because people all over the country want to attend, and so if you move it around, then it's easier for some people. It's a little bit closer for me, but it's still, I haven't gotten one that's drivable for me yet.
Yeah, when I went to one of the Monkey DAO executive meetings, it was in Chicago, and we were trying to figure out where to do it. And one of the reasons we did it in Chicago is because we had someone from Germany, I think, flying in, and it was just much easier for him to get there from. Just Chicago is the only part of the country that would make sense for him to go all the way out for a trip like this.
Interesting.
Anyways.
And also tell me what's happening with you.
Not much. I got a haircut today. Me and Bruno. Bruno and I got haircuts today.
You both look very handsome.
Yeah, and something that you said that I don't fully understand before we got on here is that I said I took a shower immediately after. And you say you don't take showers after the haircut. I can't comprehend that, because when I get a haircut, the feeling of the little hair follicles, whatever, the particles, and the itchiness, and on my shirt, on my collar, all of that, cannot stand it. It's unbearably uncomfortable. I have to take a shower immediately after, right when I get home. I can't even go somewhere else in between. I just go straight home.
That's unique. I don't know if other listeners have the same issue, but if I go and get my hair done, it looks good when I leave. I'm not going to go and then wash it and get it all wet and have to style it myself. The whole point is, she styles it at the end, blow dries it, curls it, floofs it up.
Yeah, but what's the point of that as well? Are you only getting your hair done right before a big event?
Well, no, but if you get your hair done in the morning, you might as well have it look good the rest of the day.
I guess.
I don't know. And they put the whole drape on you, and, I don't know how all that hair is getting on you.
It always finds its way, no matter what, in the collar, everything. Well, maybe women's hair is different because it's longer.
Yeah, I think maybe since you're getting it so short, you've got little teeny tiny pieces of hair that are going places.
Yeah, no. Anyways, terribly uncomfortable. Can't stand it. But got a haircut today. That was good. It's a long time coming. I don't like getting haircuts. I don't like some people like talking to their barber. I don't like it. I don't like that little chit chat, forced conversation. I go to this. I'm pretty sure they're Armenian barbers. They talk a different language. They don't talk to you. They just they do a great haircut, real quick, real fast, nice hot towel, and then they get you out of there. And that's my favorite part about it. And even then, I don't really like going, but that's like best case scenario. Worst case is when they try starting a conversation and learn about you, and it's like, I know you don't care. I don't really care about what's going on with you in this 10-minute interaction.
Sometimes some people have great relationships with their hairdressers, and they've known them for years and years and years. And
See, that's I understand that. Then it's like a friendship. It's built up over time. But like you go to Supercuts, and the Supercuts lady's like trying to tell you about her second husband and the way that he stole the kids away or something. It's like, just cut my hair, please.
Well, let's see why you don't go to Supercuts. But like, I mean, Mila, I've gone to her for years now, and I mean, she comes to like our Halloween parties and events, and so yeah, kind of.
Well, I guess just depending on the situation.
Another one of those things that is different between the sexes.
Anyways, let's get into it.
Okay, let's go.
Updates on cases.
Well, so actually, I guess it wasn't our last episode, but we did a special episode on Valentine's Day. And since that, there's been an update on a new Valentine's Day case. And it was a case that was actually filed on Valentine's Day.
Nice.
And yeah, I think they planned this because it is a suit against Tinder and Hinge, the two dating apps.
Yeah, those are big.
Yeah, so these are definitely post my time. So I don't know. So maybe you know some more details about these that will help make this case make sense. Anyway, the lawsuit is saying that they are designed to be addictive, and that they say that they are, quote, designed to be deleted. So what they're advertising is that the whole purpose of these apps is to meet somebody, fall madly in love, and then you don't need the app anymore, and you go off and you live your life happily ever after. Yeah. But what they're saying is that actually they're super addictive, and that they intentionally design these platforms with addictive game-like design features, locking people into a pay-to-play loop, and that, I guess what I didn't understand was that I think that you can use it to some level for free, but then you can actually subscribe, and it's much more unlimited. There's a limited, I guess, if it's free, there's a limited number of likes you can receive or give, that sort of thing. But then they also have in-app purchases, and I don't know exactly what that would be, but it sounds almost game-like.
Yeah. So I'm very much in a happy relationship, so I haven't been on Tinder in a while. But in my college days, I did use Tinder quite a bit. Everyone does. It's just like the easiest thing, and it's just simple, right? If you don't like someone, you swipe left. If you like someone, you swipe right, and then immediately in milliseconds, you get to see a new person that there's all these possibilities, opportunities with. And so I think that's a very addicting feature of it. With the pay to play aspect, it hasn't always been like this, but I remember there's a limited amount of swipes where you can do like 50 swipes a day or something like that. And so people that wanted to keep, that you don't get any matches or you don't get the right matches that you're looking for and you want to keep swiping, you have to pay that extra fee. And then they also added this like gold membership or gold something like that, where it would tell you,
Tinder Gold. Yeah.
Tinder Gold. Yeah, you have 10 people that like you. If you want to see exactly who they are and swipe on them right now, then you can pay this additional fee. Or if you want a chance, it's coming back to me now. There's like this raffle thing too, where even if you didn't pay,
it is a game like it sounds like.
Well, it was like once a day, it would give you 4 options, and it would be like profiles that were blurred out, and it would tell you one of these people swiped right on you. One of these people like you.
Okay, I'm seeing this.
And then
now.
you would have to click it, and sometimes it'd be like, nice, you got a match. Other times it'd be like, oh, nope, and then
not this one.
Not this one, yeah.
But do you have to pay to see another one then?
Or you can just pay to see all your matches.
Oh,
so you don't even have to play the game.
This is making a lot of sense to me. It's a good thing I'm asking you about this.
Yeah, well, so I will say too is that I think these are obvious game features, but also like the whole idea where it's like you download it, it's an app to be deleted. It's intended to be deleted to meet significant other, which I know people and from some of my friends in college have met their significant others over Tinder. But I actually did a study on this in college in my communication class about how the increase in options and opportunity through these dating apps, where it just takes one swipe to see another potential mate, a potential candidate, actually lowers your satisfaction level in your current relationships, and increases your, when you are in a relationship, increases your kind of like your thinking out of it, where it's like, well, what other opportunities are there for me? Because I mean, you think back in the day where it's like set up marriages, or you have to court someone for like 16 months even to get married, or even start the ball rolling. There's a lot of sunk costs there. But with these Tinder profiles and apps and current dating, the sunk cost is incredibly low.
But so why would you be looking at it if you're in a relationship anyway? So how would that affect your relationship?
It's not looking at it. It's knowing how available there are. Like how many options are available at all times makes it so when you are in a relationship, your satisfaction level in that relationship isn't as high. Or like the bar is so much higher because you're thinking in your head, wow, at my fingertips, there could be hundreds of other candidates.
And especially like if your partner pisses you off and, she just farted and now I'm going to go. I mean, I could just easily look up somebody else, or you get into a spat of, that there's like at your fingertips, hundreds and thousands.
You just download an app. You don't even have to go out to a bar. You don't have to go into any awkward social situation. You just download an app and boom, you're looking at all these other options. And because there's this whole idea that these apps make dating life easier and more comfortable, and lead to, if I see all of the options, then I'm going to get the best option, and I'm going to be the happiest because I have all these options. But it doesn't actually work that way.
So how about Hinge? Did you ever do that one?
Yeah, Hinge. So there's Hinge and Bumble. I didn't do Hinge. Bumble was like, their unique thing was like the girls had to message the guys first, because there's always a trend of like you'll get a match and girls never message first. They never do. And then the guys will message and the girls complain, oh, they just say, hey, like I want more effort. But then you go to Bumble and the girls message and they only say hey as well. They're the ones complaining about it, but then they always say hey with 6 Ys.
They want to have, they want to be equal rights, and they can be the one saying, hey.
Yeah, it's a little hypocritical if you don't ask me. But Hinge, I think, is intended. Tinder's like more hookups, and Hinge is supposed to be a little bit more relationship. Okay. So I think there's like more customization on profiles. You can add more information. I never used Hinge, but some of Christina's friends have used Hinge, and I think they prefer it just because, again, it's a little bit more official, less hookup-y.
Yeah, I guess the impression that I had with Tinder was that it was for like a hookup one night kind of thing, or like, what are you doing right now? I'll come over kind of thing, as opposed to, like relationship. So this suit was filed. We'll see what happens, but they're saying, that the whole point is that it shouldn't be addictive, because it should be something that you use, your intent going in is to find a relationship and to delete the app, but in fact, they're trying to set it up so that you don't. And it sounds like, what you said also would kind of support that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it is not necessarily their fault. It's just what happens when there is this type of options. But when you have it, if you have push notifications on, which most people do, because they'll tell you if you got a match, or if you get a message or something, it'll message you or pop up like frequently during the day where it's like, hey, someone just swiped right on you. Like, we don't know who it is. It could be anyone, but you should come check out the app. And I'm sure even a lot of those times no one actually swipes right on you, but it's just like they tell you and they remind you and they want you always coming back.
Well, that sounds pretty addictive. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like a lot of apps do that. Every app does that. Maybe Tinder and Hinge do it worse.
Well, but so one of their allegations or their claims is under the false advertising. So again, if you're advertising that it's something that's temporary, as opposed to if you're just saying, come get addicted to my game, it's addictive. You're going to play it for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and kind of a separate question or like concern I have is like this false advertisement, where it's a known thing. Like, you can't falsely advertise. But I've seen a lot of advertisements out there, especially ones that aren't as well monitored. Like if you're going on national TV, okay, that you can't be fucking around there. But there's a lot of like YouTube ads or Twitter ads that just blatantly are lying, and you can tell that they're lying. But it's also like a very sketchy ad where, it's probably just like a few guys in the back of a basement just making it.
Well, and so maybe they think that even if there's a lawsuit, the person's not going to collect. And then some of these, kind of fly-by-night companies, I mean, they'll just shut down and then they, reform a new corporation the next day with a different name, and they're hard to track down on that. So, yeah.
So they're saying that they're falsely advertising, saying that they're kind of like a one-stop shop for relationships. Once you get in one, then you get to delete it, and there's no reason for you to come back, and we don't want you to come back but realistically, they do want you to come back.
Right. I mean, I guess Hinge's motto is, and is in quotes, designed to be deleted.
That's a great fucking motto. That's like 10 out of 10 marketing right there. Designed to be deleted. It even just rolls off the tongue.
It does.
Well.
It's impressive, yeah. But it's apparently not true.
Yeah.
It's apparently false advertising. So we'll see what comes of the lawsuit. But it's interesting, and it just kind of flows into the other cases with all of the social media lawsuits about how addictive they are. And again, those are targeting, teens and young adults. But I mean, you can addict adults unless you say that you're not trying to do that, and you say that that's not the point. So that's kind of the differentiation, I think.
Yeah, I wonder what it's like too for the older generation that does get into those apps, because I can imagine if you're 40, 50, there's 60 age settings in there too. You're in that age range, and like when you were younger, you couldn't, right? Like you had to hang out by the landline if you wanted to hope that your significant other would call or your crush would call. You guys had promise rings before even going to first base, even a smooch on the cheek, and it was like, you got to give me a promise ring.
Yeah, well, that must have been way before me.
But now it's like Tinder, and it's you match, and just what are you doing? Boom.
Boom,
just like that. That's all you need. No promise ring, no courting.
I think times have changed.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting one. I wonder if they're successful, I'm assuming they'll probably just take out some of the gamification features. It's not like they're going to have to close down, maybe pay some fees.
Well, or perhaps just change their marketing. And so not say we're not addictive and just stay addictive, but not deny it. Right. And so, because again, I mean, a lot of these things are addictive, but like gambling is addictive, smoking is addictive, alcohol is addictive. But if you're over 18 or 21, depending on, what the issue is, you can choose to use an addictive substance. You can choose to become addicted.
And it tells you.
Up to you.
It says this is an addictive substance.
But in recent years, they've had to. I mean, back in the day, cigarettes didn't and alcohol didn't.
Well, they cured cancer back in the day. I don't know what happened to that shit. Bring back the old cigarettes. Those are good old days.
Wow. Yeah, so.
Well, keep us updated on that. What other updates you have?
So actually there is a current trial, one of the Johnson & Johnson talc trials going on, and it's kind of interesting because it's an evidentiary issue, and they're talking about whether or not these ads that J&J put out back in the day could come into evidence. And there's all of these advertisements where they were really pitching it as, as being clean and sanitary and safe. And then in the 70s, they started pushing it for women with more adult themes and wanting you to use it on your genitals, and basically you're dirty if you don't use this. And so you're unattractive, all of this. So the plaintiffs had wanted to put this evidence into the trial, and the defense was arguing, no, this evidence shouldn't come in because there's no indication that the plaintiff in this case, and it's the husband of a woman who passed away after using baby powder for 50 years. They're saying there's no evidence that this woman ever saw these ads or that they affected her, and which makes sense. Yeah. But the point here is that oftentimes these cases are bifurcated, and what that means is divided into two. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they will put the liability case and regular damages in one trial, and then the punitive damages aspect comes into a second trial. Mm-hmm. And what the judge said is, well, to the defendants, you didn't ask for two trials, and that evidence is relevant to the punitive aspect of what J&J did. I can tell the jury not to pay attention to that in the context of the liability and the compensatory, but I mean, that's one of those, the horses out of the barn, they've heard it. So this is going to be a little bit of a messy trial, I think. But I thought it was just interesting, how these things, how the evidence comes in depending on how the trials are set up. Yeah. And I think it's very, it's inflammatory. These, especially when the jury hears about the fact that there's asbestos and this talc is a carcinogen, and then they see these ads where they're just touting it as this it's an incredibly healthy and clean and pure product, and yet it's causing cancer.
Well, that's a great argument too. Is that there's no proof that this these individuals saw the ads, which, I mean, if they should have been using the product for 50 years, the odds are she probably did. But regardless, it's a good argument, and it kind of brings up this I don't know, idea or problem, but with a lot of these mass torts where the class action lawsuits, you kind of think of like very big picture where it's like, okay, this company did this and their product's doing this. But when you really go into a little bit more narrow situation where, yes, this company did these things and yes, they advertised it badly. But in this specific case, did the client, did the defendant, or did the plaintiff actually see these advertisements? Were they, how much of it is relevant to this small aspect of the bigger picture?
Right, exactly. And I mean, and it's really, and if she hadn't seen these advertisements, then it wouldn't be relevant to her specific case.
Exactly.
But in this bigger punitive damage picture, it is relevant. And so that just goes to the defendants really should have asked to divide it up. And they know that these arguments are being made, this evidence is being pushed in these cases because it's so inflammatory and so, infuriating to jurors. And it's the kind of thing that gets them awarding these huge damages to really slam them. But yeah, so this case actually, the specific details on this one, well, she used it for, like I said, 50 years. So it was a good long time, and she probably did see some of these ads. But she used it as a deodorant, antiperspirant, used it in her underwear, and put it even in her diaphragm. I mean, all of these things, these are uses that J&J was encouraging women to do. And so that's a lot, 50 years on a daily basis. She ended up being diagnosed with peritoneal carcinoma. And that's a really rare cancer. And so, again, it's not something, like lung cancer. You know? I mean, it's very, very rare. And it's in this area where she's been putting this talc for 50 years. So I think it's a really strong case on the really facts.
Strong case straight off the bat. I mean, this consistent long-term usage with the disease being something that's very unique. And
right.
I mean, that's kind of by the book right there, right?
Yeah. So it's a really strong case on the specific facts. Yeah. And again, over the period of 50 years, I mean, why did she use it? I mean, there was something that led her to believe that she should be using it.
She coincidentally has been using it the exact way that they've been advertising it for the last 50 years. Well, I don't know if she saw the ads, but something is kind of lining up here. I don't know. Yeah. So, and unfortunately, she passed away in 2019, but the case is being brought on behalf of her husband. So, again, this may be another one with a big verdict, and of course, it's going to be one that's hard fought and appealed, I'm sure. So why don't the defendants every time ask for separate cases for punitive and like this individual one where it's individual damages? Because it seems like most of the time there's I can't imagine a situation that it would make more sense for them to not only have an individual case where you can put a face to the damages, but then also have this punitive argument where you're putting like the full big picture out. Like you're getting, as a plaintiff, you're getting the best of both worlds. You show them the big picture and this very small specific case with a face behind it.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't. I mean, usually they do fight really hard for it. They absolutely do. And so one of the arguments against that is that it's more efficient in time, to do it all in one trial. But at the same time, it can really, mix up the issues and be problematic. I mean, the only thing I could think is if they were like super confident in a particular case and they're like, there's no way there's going to be punitive damages in this case. Let's just knock the whole thing
it seems
out.
Reckless at that point.
Yeah. I mean, they have been successful in some of the cases and had defense verdicts. But again, looking at the facts of this case, it sounds, and I don't know all of the details, but from what's been reported, it sounds like a pretty strong case and a potential for pretty significant punitive damages. So it sounds, and the judge actually specifically said, I mean, like, I don't know why you did it. I've never done a trial. He said, I've never done a trial like this where the parties agreed to do one trial on punitive damages. Because what I could have done is I could have made the ruling that I made, and then I could have said, don't introduce the ads during the liability phase. but y'all agreed, not me. That's a quote, but y'all agreed, not me. So apparently they did agree. We don't know what went on behind closed doors there. But the judge was kind of saying, well, you're an idiot for doing it this way.
I like his stance on that, where he's just like, you guys made the bed, you shit in it, now you roll around in it. Like, this is your thing.
Y'all shit the bed. That's what you shit the bed, lie in it, right? I mean, that's kind of what he's saying. So anyway, it was kind of, I read all of these articles every week, and this one just kind of jumped out to me that, I like the judge just saying, what the heck?
And I like it too, where he's like, if you really want, I can tell the jury not to, apply it to this specific situation or try to only apply it to this side of the case. But I'm sure when he's saying that, he's like, come on, guys, like, it's not going to make a fucking difference. Like,
telling juries to ignore things doesn't do that. No. Sometimes you don't even want that because it just highlights it. As soon as the whole thing about if you tell somebody not to think about a white bear, all they can think about is a white bear. And if you tell somebody, not to think about the ads, all they're going to think about is the ads.
We're getting to the punitive part here, or we're in the liability part. Do not think about the ads that are specifically connected to the punitive. Do not think about the ad that told the person to use it in this way that just so happened the liability case.
Yeah, the ads that said how safe and sanitary and clean and all of that. Yeah, so kind of fun.
No, I mean, that is good. J&J, I mean, they fucking deserve it at this point. Come on, like, this talc situation.
We're not fans of J&J. We'll just admit that right here.
Not at all.
Now.
Well, with this talc case, with how long it's been going on and how clear cut it's been that they knowingly did a lot of this, and a lot of this damages could easily have been prevented if they just took it off the shelves at an earlier time. I'm glad to see that they're kind of shitting the sheets a little bit when it comes to the day in court, and now everything's coming out in a way that is to the benefit of the defense, and for the jury to really see not only the big picture, but how the big picture can affect an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and they're still working on this third bankruptcy attempt in the state of Texas now, we expect. So, again, they're pretty despicable.
They're all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, they're trying to get out of it any way they can.
Wow. What other updates?
Well, so we talked quite a bit about the troubled teen industry and some of those lawsuits, and there has been another lawsuit filed. This one is in Alabama against an Alabama youth center called Laurel Oaks Behavioral Health Center. And this one, very sad. It's actually an 8-year-old boy. I mean, it's not even a teen. This is like, an 8-year-old boy who was sexually assaulted by his roommate at this facility. And there's a lot of kind of confounding aspects to this. But it wasn't just a fluke that this happened. There had been 2 prior sex assault situations at the same facility. And they had assured the parents that this boy was going to be in a room on his own and monitored 24/7, except for when he was in the bathroom. And instead, they put him into a situation where his roommate had actually assaulted him twice, and had a history of sexual assault. And this is an 8-year-old boy, and they didn't say the age of the roommate. But, however old the person is, they knew that he had this propensity, and they did not supervise. And so this young boy was sexually assaulted. And, and again, you're taking kids and you're putting them they already have issues going on, or they wouldn't be here. And what they need is, they need, medical, psychiatric, psychological care and protection. And they're putting them in these environments where they are not getting better, they're getting worse.
Well, not only that, it's not like they just obliviously did it. Like, they know exactly what they should be doing, or roughly what they should be doing, which is putting him in a room by himself with supervision and making sure nothing like this happens. But instead of doing what they said that they would do, what they promised the parents and what the parents are paying them money to do, they did the complete opposite of it.
Well, again, and they're going to make a lot more money if they can cram more people, and they don't want to have to supervise one person 24/7. It's cheaper.
Prioritizing profits.
Exactly, prioritizing profits over the safety of the youth. And then on top of that, what happens oftentimes is that then these teens or children complain about their treatment, and they are completely gaslit. That they're saying, "Oh no, they're lying. That's not true." Well, of course they're lying. They're troubled. They have issues. Haven't they lied before to you? Isn't one of the reasons that they're here is their misbehavior? And
they're just trying to get out. That's
yeah, absolutely. And so, and a lot of times that's why these things go on for as long as they do. Mm-hmm. So it's really sad. But another lawsuit has been filed, and I expect that now that more light is being shed on this whole topic, we are going to see more and more cases filed out there, and more parents cognizant of these issues and believing the kids.
Yeah.
And again, this was an issue that Paris Hilton is really a big advocate for, because she did go through the troubled teen industry and is still traumatized over her treatment at several, I think 3 different facilities.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this too with like the Boy Scout cases where these type of situations, they just get brushed under the rug quite often, and it's even more difficult because it's incredibly difficult for the victims to come out and say anything. But once one person does come out and say something, usually it's followed by a lot more. It's also interesting to me that all these places are named after like floral woods, like Sunny Oaks or like Sunny Paradise, and like all these like really nice aesthetic nature,
beautiful,
which I mean, at this point would be a red flag to me. It's like, look, we know this is going to be a tough time for our kid. Okay, let's not try to like put a pig in like a princess outfit. Like this
but the setting's nice. They're going to be abused, but they have a pretty view out their window.
Yeah.
Oh wait, they don't have windows. They're bars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the part of that is that these facilities usually are outside of the city. They're out in these places that, for ones, if they escape, they've got a long way to go to civilization.
Yeah.
And again, it's going to be cheaper. They're out in the middle of nowhere.
Real estate's cheaper.
And so, yeah, exactly. And I assume there are some trees and a pond here or there to name it after.
I think both of these situations too, or not both these situations, but this and like the private prison industry, like I think both are kind of in this area where they're private industries that are intended at their businesses. Which they shouldn't be businesses. Like the services that they're providing shouldn't be for profit, but both of them are. And because of that, a lot of things are overlooked. A lot of corners are cut, and a lot of shady shit goes down.
Well, when you make it for profit, I mean, your interest is going to be to keep the costs as low as possible, which means staffing costs, security costs, everything.
Which these services shouldn't be focused on.
Exactly.
We don't live in a utopian society. So, it's frustrating.
Not yet.
It'll never change. It'll never change. Prisons will never not be private. Anyways, that's shitty. I think there's going to be more cases like that coming out, and I think it's good that it does come out. I think the more light that's shed on it, it leads to hopefully a reduction in it. I think that's why Paris Hilton really stood up, and she's been kind of the main front lines fighter for this whole cause.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and hopefully the changes will be made and regulations and children kept safer.
Mm-hmm. What else you got for us?
Okay, so social media addiction, MDL. We have a date for the first bellwether trial. That will be on October 14th of 2025, which sounds a little ways away. However, it's relatively quick for this type of a litigation and getting an actual trial date set. And we've talked a little bit before about how these bellwether cases get chosen, and it can vary a bit from case to case. In this situation, well, there's 2 different pools the judges divided them into. And so there are the individual cases brought by parents for injuries to their children, and then the cases brought by school districts for the damages they've incurred in having to deal with the situation within the school districts. And so what the judge is going to do is they want to put a dozen cases into each of those pools, and that will be plaintiffs choose 6, defendants choose 6 in each of those pools. And then that discovery will start on those cases, and then the judge will determine the schedule as far as which cases go first. And always in these discovery pools, cases here and there drop out.
Yeah. I heard somewhere, I thought I saw an article that New York was added onto the list of states that have actually sued the social media companies as well.
They probably have,
just add them to the list. I think it's interesting because you touched on this, how October 2025 sounds very far away. We just got into 2024.
Right.
But that is relatively fast for these types of cases. And the amount of legwork on the back end for this type of stuff has to be insane, right? I mean, just in those 12 cases, all of the discovery for all of that, all the moving pieces and different law firms coming into play, and the army of lawyers these social media companies have.
Well, and so what happened initially after the whole MDL was consolidated was there were all these motions flying around about these cases can't go forward. They all need to get dismissed because this isn't even a claim. And so they've fought those at the state and the MDL level, and both they're moving forward in both. But now what happens is when you pick these individual cases, you actually have to go and you have to do the discovery, because like we just talked about, you have to talk about this specific case, not just how atrocious, what they're doing is, but what happened to this individual person. And is this really what caused their eating disorder, their suicide attempt, their death? Depending on the specific facts, because then they get to depose the family members, teachers, what else was going on in the kid's life, how often did the child really use social media. So it's very specific, medical doctors, and that's a lot of, getting all of those scheduled and the depositions, and then they'll probably file motions in the individual cases about restricting certain experts, certain witnesses, what can and can't go in. I mean, there's a lot, even just once you pick the case to get to
just
trial.
Individual case. So what is it like being chosen for these bellwethers? Because I imagine for the clients or the defendants, or for the plaintiffs, it has to be an incredibly stressful experience, right? Because I mean, you're in a pool of thousands and thousands of plaintiffs, and your case is one of 12 that are being used to represent kind of the bigger picture here. And because of that, both sides are going to get as nitty gritty as they possibly can.
Yeah. Well, so that's interesting. And what you do, I mean, this has come up in cases that I've been involved in where they are looking for bellwether cases. And so, each attorney goes through and they say, okay, this is a really, really strong case for, whatever reasons. And you talk with lead counsel. But ultimately, you figure out if it really truly is a case that meets all the criteria to be a bellwether. But then you have to talk to the client. You have to say, is this something you want to do or you don't want to do? And there's two groups of people for sure. I mean, there are a lot of people who say the only reason I want to be in this type of case is that I will never have to go to trial, that I don't want to have to get up and tell my story. But then there are other people who, I mean, they day one, they're like, I want to go to trial.
Yeah.
And I think in this kind of case, I mean, they were having all of the congressional testimony, and there were parents standing there. I don't know if you saw this on the news, with photographs of their children held up. I mean, it just gives me chills to think about it. But there are some people, and especially in these situations where somebody's lost a child, I mean, the child is gone and the parents are completely devastated, but they are so angry, and they want to protect other children. And in these kind of cases, I mean, I see this happening more than I do, say, in an artificial hip case, where they're like, well, this really sucked, but I don't want to have to mess up my life. I mean, these parents' lives are already destroyed, and being able to be in a court or at a hearing and to talk about just how horrible this has been really is very healing for them. So that's key too. You need to find people who can withstand it and who want to do that. Yeah.
No, I mean, I can imagine that being an incredibly difficult experience, but like you said, there are two different camps of people where it makes complete sense for them to want to get into a case like this, because most of the time you don't have to go to court. Most of the time, you kind of have these boxes and you fit into these categories.
Yeah. I mean, never even a deposition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then on the other end, if you are chosen and you're looking to get into this and you're willing to speak out, it's not just you. You talked about these teachers being brought in, the psychiatrists, the staff. I mean, it is like every crevice of some of these people's lives being shown, and all for, obviously the reason of how it impacted their lives. But you have to see the big picture to see how nearly it was impacted.
Well, absolutely. But then you also have to realize that what the defense counsel is going to do, their focus is going to be on saying, you're a crappy parent. Right? I mean, how devastating could, I mean, again, I just get chills thinking about this, but they're going to say, you weren't supervising your child. You didn't know what was going on. You should have done this. You should have done that. And the kid committed suicide. Well, it's not because of us. It's because, this or that, or they were bullied at school. And, and so they're going to be attacking. And that, I think, would be very, very, very devastating, especially because just as a parent, we all know that we made mistakes and no parent's perfect, but whatever little mistakes they may have made, are going to seem huge in this context to them, even probably more so than to anybody else. So I think it would be a really hard one. But that being said, I think there are parents who are absolutely feel like that, like they are standing up for their child, and they're making sense, or somehow making things better for other children and preventing other children from dying.
That makes sense. I imagine it's a very fine line that the defense has to walk when doing those type of cross-examinations, because it is such a vulnerable topic. And the jury in general, I would imagine, is not just on big business's side. Like they're kind of fighting an uphill battle as defense already.
Well, it depends. Some of the jurors, you get some jurors who you
think, maybe some older generation.
They're going to lean, they're going to lean different directions. Yeah. But I think you have to be very, very careful about calling them out without attacking them too much, because if you piss the jury off,
that's what I would imagine.
That's not going to be good.
Yeah, someone already feels bad for the parent, and then they see them getting ripped apart.
Beat up on the stand.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of those things where, good defense attorneys, that's a real skill of being able to say you're an asshole, but say it really nicely with a smile on your face. And I'm so sorry for your loss, but it's your fault.
I can imagine. So the info and details of these bellwether cases, is that going to be public right away, or is that?
Not right away. Right now, the process is just both sides starting this initial process of culling through and talking to all of the other attorneys. Well, which cases do you think? Which cases do you have? Looking at all of the options. Both sides are doing this, and the defense is looking at them, saying, which are the crappiest cases do we want to pick? And then what happens sometimes, and I've seen this happen in litigations I've been involved in, again, some attorneys file cases that aren't really strong. Defense picks that as a bellwether, and the only way to get rid of it is to dismiss the case. Yeah. And then you have to convince the client, who whatever law firm has said, hey, you've got a case. Well, shit, you didn't have a case after all, and we have to dismiss it, because otherwise you're going to ruin it for everybody.
I remember you telling me that some of the bigger law firms have to go to the little guys and be like, yo, what the hell is this? We told you not to put in the bad ones yet.
Yeah, and now here we are.
And now you have to fucking own up, clean up your mistake, and go to the client and tell them.
Yeah.
Because everyone's writing on it too. There's like hundreds of millions of dollars of law firms across the entire country. You try to stand strong and shit the case a little bit. Then next time you go to one of the big AAJs, you're a bad guy. You're a bad guy. You're getting booed out of the room.
Exactly.
Well, I am really curious about which cases they're going to choose here. And I think, hopefully you can update us on those cases, because with this specifically, I think a lot of people look at the social media cases and they don't really understand it. They don't understand why there is a case, what the issue is, that these companies did anything wrong. A lot of people, I think, recognize that it's not healthy and what's happening isn't great for society or for younger generation, but they don't see that it's actually illegal and some of the serious damages on the individual basis. So hopefully when these bellwether cases are chosen, you can tell us about, some of the more specifics there.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I think we've done 2 episodes previously where we really dove into the details on these cases. So if it is a topic of interest, we will put links in the show notes for those 2 episodes. I don't recall which ones they are, but again, it's a big issue, and it's specifically children and young adults and the addictive qualities.
We are kind of coming to like the ending part of it. We still got a little bit of time though, but I wasn't. Which do you want to go on to? Cases we're handling, interesting cases. Is there anything you wanted to kind of give extra time to? Yeah, one more update, because we've talked a lot about Camp Lejeune. And so there is an issue that's come up recently that I think is of particular interest, and that is whether or not these cases get to go to a jury trial as opposed to a bench trial, which is basically a judge deciding it. And recently, the court said, no, they're not going to get jury trials. It will be bench trial only. And that's specifically because the cases are against the United States. Yeah. And generally speaking, you don't have a right to a jury trial unless a statute specifically allows that. And the issue was whether this Camp Lejeune Justice Act
specifically allowed for jury trial. And so what's happened is that all of these cases were filed as administrative claims, and there's about 165,000 administrative claims. When you file an administrative claim, if it gets denied or it doesn't get addressed within 6 months, then you have the right to sue. And administrative claims, so basically that the 6 months always runs, and you do have the right to sue. And so 1,500 of these, they have actually filed the lawsuit as opposed to saying, no, we're going to go ahead and resolve it through the administrative process. So there's 1,500 cases out there. The court says, no, you don't have a right to a jury trial. And what's happened is they don't want to delay the whole process by appealing. So there are 2 plaintiffs who are appealing, arguing that, yes, the terms, I mean, they kind of addressed it in the Lejeune Act saying, but they didn't specifically say you do have the right to a jury trial, but what they said was that nothing in here would take away a right to a jury trial. So there's arguments about whether that means for third parties. Anyway, that is kind of a big issue because people feel strongly that they want a jury of their peers to hear their story as opposed to just a judge. It's much more, logical and
well, part of the government kind of, right? Part of one of the governmental branches. Legislative.
Yes, or judicial, yes.
Which, I mean, the government, whether or not it's not that specific arm, the government is at fault here, so I could kind of see that.
Well, and the government said they're at fault, basically. It's just, how much are the claims going to be paid individually? Yeah. So anyway, that's pending, but the process as a whole is still moving forward.
That's going to moving forward. So, I'm assuming that it's the plaintiffs that want the jury.
Yes.
Jury of their peers. Assuming because, I mean, you kind of get to pull at heartstrings a little bit more and it's better for the case as a whole on their side. And then 2 of the plaintiffs are kind of forking off here, taking one for the team, trying to tackle
That's a good way to say it.
Right? I mean, they're trying to tackle this problem because they know that it is something worth addressing, but at the same time, they're really trying to push out these settlements as quickly as possible. They've been on pace for pretty well so far, but it's something you got to do.
Yeah, and presumably these are very strong cases where they think that the awards are going to be higher if they have a jury to hear the case.
Well, I think regardless, the Camp Lejeunes have been moving pretty speedy. It's unfortunate that there is this speed bump coming, and I mean, I don't know. I see where they're coming from. Like, jury of your peers. I feel like that's even anyone that hasn't like fully read through the Constitution. That's a saying, I want a jury of my peers to judge me and innocent until proven guilty. And especially when the issue at hand is because of a governmental entity. Do you want?
Well, and they're admitting that yes, we did expose all of these people to this horrible.
Leave it to another governmental entity, separate branch, sure, but another governmental entity to decide.
So we trust the government.
For sure, we definitely trust. Anyways, what else do you want to go into?
Well, so on cases we're handling, we're not specifically addressing one of the big MDLs, but in general. Well, actually, I guess this is an MDL. There is an MDL right now against Uber, and this is for failure to prevent driver sex assaults. And this is relatively new, but they're saying that Uber has known for nearly a decade that its drivers were preying on and sexually assaulting passengers, but they failed to do anything to try to provide safety. At the same time, they're advertising that it's very safe for women to use Uber, and that there are certainly things that they could have done better that they have decided not to do. Again, prioritizing profits over safety.
Yeah. Did you see the most recent TV show? I forgot what it was called, but it's about Uber, and it's about their startup and how they kind of became obviously the massive conglomerate that they are, and it really started this entire trend. In the first episode, it seems like it's kind of foreshadowing what the entire series is going to be about. But the first episode, he's talking about adding a safety charge. He's like, well, what are we going to do? It's not like we can't do any more background checks. We've done everything we can do to like kind of figure out who's driving these cars, and we can't really promise safety. And he's like, no. You don't understand. We charge more and say that it's a safety charge.
But you don't give anything for it?
Well, I mean, they feel safer. If you see a safety charge, why wouldn't you choose a safety charge? Everyone's going to choose a safety charge. But yeah, pretty much they're not going to do anything extra on it. But it was a way, because they were getting so many complaints that people weren't feeling safe, that they didn't know who was driving them. And by adding in that, oh, do you want to pay extra for the safety of it? It almost takes that question away, where it's like, oh, well, if they're charging me, then they clearly thought about it. Clearly, this is like not just an unnecessary charge. What business would do that?
Well, so wait a minute. Do you have the option of the safety charge so that you either get a safe driver or you take your chances? Or
I think it was something that was just included.
Okay, that automatically everybody pays it because it's so safe.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because they're saying that actually they're not doing all of the things that they could be doing, and that they have chosen not to require biometric data from driver applicants. They could mandate the use of video cameras. They don't. I mean, I see them in some cars, but they're not required. And they don't conduct enhanced background checks using the FBI database. And that's actually utilized by the taxi industry. So if you're in a taxi, you actually are safer than you are in Uber, because they don't take the same precautions.
Yeah.
And they could do that.
They could, but I mean, from their perspective, I'm sure they're like, well, Lyft isn't doing that. These other car service providers.
Well, and they all get sued too. They need to do that. I mean, they're saying
that. Well, they get sued in 6 years. Hey, we're getting fucked on the sidelines over here until then. Yeah, we're being good guys, but now we're losing market share because it takes so long for people to realize what these other scumbags are doing.
Huh. Well, so there's been more than 10,000 sexual assaults since 2014, which is right after the company started allowing drivers that didn't have taxi licenses. So originally Uber had drivers. It was with taxi licenses. And again, why not employ the same? I mean, we know that there's a process out there because taxi drivers are licensed. So, take these extra steps. But again, that would be fewer drivers.
I mean, they wouldn't even be a fraction of how big they are now if they continue to do that. Like taxis, Tucson's a great example. There's no fucking taxi industry here. Like, there's like 10, 50. I mean, yeah, okay, I'm being dramatic. There's taxis, there's a taxi service, but the amount of Ubers available and how quickly you can get an Uber isn't even close to if they had those same requirements as taxis. If in New York, yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense, because it's one-on-one. It makes sense. But there's just a lot of parts of the country where Uber is even more common because of the necessity of it, because of the lack of other similar services, that they stand out because they don't have those requirements.
Well, I mean, I just find it troubling, and I guess there are situations where they know about complaints, where drivers have had multiple complaints and they still allow them to drive.
Shocking.
I mean, that just seems, so obvious. I mean, if you've had a complaint against this person, I mean, come on, there are enough people out there. And I've heard even from people who've been driving that they can't make money because there's too many drivers. And, and I guess maybe during certain time frames and all, but that they can't make money because there's too much competition for the rides that pop up. Mm-hmm. So, maybe they would have enough people. And I'd rather, have a harder time getting a ride than get in a car and get raped.
It's fair. I think you're with most people there.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But yeah, exactly. The complaint says prioritizing profits over safety. Uber and its executive officers made the conscious decision not to warn customers or users of the risk of being assaulted, even after Uber and its leadership were fully aware of this risk.
I don't think they asked us for our brand permission there.
I know, using the...
What the hell?
So yeah, so that's... it's just, and I use Uber all the time.
Yeah.
And most of the times, I mean, actually on the way to the airport, I had scheduled an Uber since Peter was going to pick me up coming back. And it was this really nice guy, and he was from Malta, so an island off of Italy. Mm-hmm. And he is a medical doctor an oncologist, but he hasn't yet gotten licensed in the United States. So in the meantime, he's driving an Uber. He had to take like a 2-year course to get his, to be licensed here in the United States to practice medicine. And he's driving Uber. I mean, fascinating, interesting guy, felt totally safe. I mean, there are people out there who need and want these jobs. Yeah. So I mean, it just seems obvious that you should do, and again, it's not even like we're saying it's so excessive. It's just what the taxi industry does. And why does the taxi industry do it? Because people get in strangers' cars.
Yeah.
And that's the risk.
That makes sense. I wonder if there's going to be a similar lawsuit for Lyft. Or
well, I'm sure if they're not. Yeah, I mean,
others.
I suspect so.
Yeah, I mean, like in that type of industry, it's not like one is really that much better than the other. Like I think there's a lot of kind of just overlap and shady practices that everyone does to dominate the market share, especially in a very new market like Uber and Lyft and these riding services where it's been like 10 years old. That's like nothing. That's nothing in terms of a business and in terms of a multi-billion-dollar industry like this.
Well, what they should do is one of them, either Uber or Lyft, should start advertising, and hell, charge a safety fee, but say, we do this extra step. We do the FBI investigation that the other one doesn't. I would only use that one.
But that's the thing, is that they can do that, and they have done that.
But they're not doing it.
But no, they just say they don't have to, because they just say, we're safer. We have additional safety checks.
Well, then they're lying and they get sued.
five more safety checks than our competitors, and those 5 safety checks is asking for the driver's dog's name and the maiden's name, and they're like, oh well, check off the box.
Well, see, and then that's false advertising, which we talked about earlier as well.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I mean, it is good that this is being addressed. I think I've heard of complaints as well from some of my friends, and I know like in college, a lot of girls like wouldn't let each other Uber home alone, especially after a party. Like they would always Uber in pairs or in groups, or at least with one guy there, just to be safe.
Well, and especially too, because a lot of the reason that people use Uber is that they know that they're going to be drinking and they don't want to drink and drive. So now you have alcohol in your system, you're even more susceptible, more vulnerable, and then here you are. With somebody who can tell. I mean, they pick you up at a bar, you're inebriated.
It's interesting. An industry that's intended to be used when you're inebriated, when you're under the substances, taking substances, and then there's this lack of security within it. It's like doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, they could do better, and so hopefully this will force them to do better. Yeah, which is the reason for lots of lawsuits.
Well, and so the lawsuit has been made. It hasn't been brought together.
No, it has. It is consolidated. Yeah, okay. It's in California federal court.
So it is taking some big strides here, and okay.
Yeah, so we'll keep you up to date on that.
And if anyone has any experiences or cases like that, they can reach out as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Give us a call. We'd be happy to get you included in the multidistrict litigation.
All righty. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we close out?
I think we pretty much are hitting the hour mark, so we can save anything else for next week.
Amazing. Well, appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hope you had a fantastic Valentine's Day. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back next week. If you have any questions, any comments, throw it in the comment section, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok.
Tinder.
Well, you're probably not watching it there. But hey, in Hinge, in your profile, when it says, what's your favorite podcast? Prioritizing profits. There you go.
Yeah, you'll definitely get some swipe whatever the good one is.
Are you kidding me? 100%. Nice little tip there. If you do have any questions or comments that you don't want to put out there in the public, completely understandable. You can email us at podcast@showeredlaw.com. Anything sent there, we'll keep it completely anonymous. If you want us to talk about your case, if you have any questions, any concerns, anything like that, we're more than happy to address them and talk about it. And I know that we're interested, and I'm sure our viewers are interested, and maybe we'll help them out as well. I hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week. Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
dangerous drug and product cases.